Hello and welcome to another brand new episode of Music Unwrapped, and I'm very excited for this episode today because I've got an absolute rock icon joining me, and that's Suzi Quatro. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on to chat. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you. I finally got here. I was just explaining before we started recording. I looked at the wrong day, and it was so funny because I clicked on the interview and it said this is scheduled for tomorrow, and I went, "Uh-oh." Well, and then I called you, and you were at a gig or something.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was it
yeah.
was it was incredible, really, because I know you called me on the night just to tell me about the mishap and everything, and I was at a gig in Newcastle,
Ah,
and
okay.
I was sat in the Weatherspoons when you called, and then I was just sat in the Weatherspoons on the phone to you, and I was like, what crazy life do I live?
You're at a gig and Susie calls you on the phone. Yeah, okay. That's funny.
It was incredible, really. But no, I'm glad we could get here in the end, and
Yes, here we
it's a
are.
real
Okay.
pleasure to chat with you. And yeah, really excited for the chat. We've obviously got to talk about your brand new novel and a new tour as well, which we'll talk about later on. But for Music Unwrapped, I always kind of begin by going back. It's all about like learning people's musical journeys and everything. So, where did it all begin for Suzi Quatro in music then?
Well, that goes back a long way, I have to say. Um, I won't make it long and drawn out. I come from a musical family, five kids. My dad was a musician all his life. Four girls, one boy. I'm second youngest. We all were trained. All five kids were trained in various instruments. I played percussion and classical piano, self-taught on bass and guitar. Family shows all the time, blah, blah, blah. So very show busy upbringing. Started the first band at 14 with my elder sister Patty, all girl band called the Pleasure Seekers. That went up until 19, and I was given the bass, by the way, because nobody wanted it. So it was given to me. Thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God how the universe threw it at me because it was perfect. I put it on and it was perfect. Anyway, that lasted till 71, and I'm shortening it now. Then Mickey Most, very famous record producer, came to Detroit. He saw the band and he offered me a solo contract. So I came over to England, and that was 71. And by 73, I had my first number one. And the rest, as they say, is history.
Yeah, so it sounds like music was always a kind of there for you then, especially if your father was a musician too.
It was music, but I have to say, for me, it was more wide range. I mean, to be quite honest, I could have gone easily into acting. I could have gone into comedy. I was very funny, but and I was drawing all the time and writing poetry and but so I could have gone to any of the arts, but music kind of had the biggest pull on me. But I've done everything since, but music pulled me in. Yeah,
So it's kind of like it had you hooked in,
it
really.
had me
Yeah.
hooked. Yeah, from the first time seeing Elvis Presley at the age of 5.5 on TV, I was hook, line, and sinker. Absolutely.
I was going to ask actually, where did your kind of first loves in music lie, and who were kind of some of the artists that you looked up to and loved?
Well, it was Elvis first. That was age 5.5, and he stayed on my shoulder my entire career. It's so long to go into. There's about 8 epiphanies that I could tell you about, but that's another show. Um, I was very, very big on the 60s Motown, obviously, growing up in Detroit. So I took a lot of my bass playing style from Jameson. He affected me. He's wonderful. Even my love of BVs was Motown based. Then when the band started, I got very much into Otis Redding. Big, big, all my big songs were his songs. Canned Heat, loved Canned Heat. The bass player in there was my first bass solo that I saw live. We played with them in 68, and he did a bass solo. And I went, "Ooh," went into my little brain. I thought, when I do a bass solo, it's going to be as good as that. And it is. And who else did I know? Oh, well, if you're talking lyrically, I guess my biggest influence would be Bob Dylan.
Bob
And believe it or not, there's a little splash of Billie Holiday thrown in there for her phrasing. How she backtracked the track. You nearly thought she was out of time. And then at the end, she would catch up. And I thought that was great. And I took a little bit of that on board. So, yeah, a few influences along the way.
Do you think Bob Dylan is a big influence in terms of his lyrics and his writing then?
I am a wordsmith, always have been. He's another Gemini, same as me. I'm either writing a poem, a song, or even when I communicate, I tend to do it on email. I'm a written word person, and I love the lyric. Absolutely, love the lyric. And I would say he was probably lyric-wise the biggest influence on me my entire life. Absolutely. I can do
Yeah.
all of his songs, all the lyrics, and I can imitate him. Perfect.
You know, he's got some incredible songs, and I've spoken to so many people that have said he's like the biggest influence on them, in terms of the writing and the lyrics that he created and everything.
Did you? I read a line just the other day that he said, which I just went, wow. He was talking to somebody, and it was just recently, and he said, I was born a poet, and I will die a poet. And that should be now, we're nearly onto my
Yeah,
book there. If I would talk to him, I say, can I use that for your epitaph? Because that is a great epitaph, isn't it?
yeah. That's so he's always kind of seen himself as a poet, and
Yes,
the
he has.
poetry's
He even
kind of
won the poet laureate, didn't he? I can't remember what year it was, 2 or 3 years ago. The highest
yeah.
accolade you can receive.
And the poems have kind of transformed into music then, in like in terms of the art and everything.
Yes,
Yeah, it's it's incredible. It really is, and he's so talented. And
very.
there's a section of this podcast, Susie, where I ask each guest, and I feel a bit bad for not pre-warning you now because sometimes it puts people on the spot, but I'm confident you'll probably be quite good with this. I ask each guest for three songs that are pivotal or important to their career or life in music. So it could be a song that's played like a lot of importance to you, or it could just be a song that you just love. So if I ask you for three, would you be able to
Okay,
give me three?
sure I could. First of all, Don't Be Cruel by Elvis. That changed my life. Then I would say probably Lay Lady Lay. And let me think of the third one now. It's a really off the wall one.
What is it?
It's off the wall. Lady with a Braid by Dory Previn.
So quite three very different ones
The whole
there then.
spectrum you get there, yeah.
I'm impressed how quickly you've reeled them off to me because some people struggle when they're on the spot, but I had the
Sometimes it's good.
confidence.
Yeah, but sometimes if I'm the kind that even if they say, here's what I'm going to ask you, I say, don't tell me. Because then you are manufacturing your answers instead of just having a conversation and you throw a question at me and I answer you. That's a natural conversation. I prefer it that way.
More kind of authentic, isn't it? And more just
Yes,
like, yeah, more
correct.
just like how you say, more like normal than scripted and stuff. No, I'm impressed by that. So thank you very much for sharing them. It's just I always like just hearing about like the music people loved and kind of where their influences lie and just the songs that really do mean the most to them.
Well, funny thing on that point, this is just my opinion. Um, as an artist for 61 years now, any artist worth their salt, you know, any good artist, they will, when they cite these influences, they will have been able to watch these particular people soak up the essence of that particular artist, put it through their body, and have it come out in their character.
So have them artists kind of done that to you then, really? Yeah.
Yes, sure, many have. In fact, it was Mike Chapman who said, I didn't say it, Mike Chapman said it on my 2000, get my years right, 2019 documentary Suzi Q. He said, when they interviewed him, every single girl that came after Suzi Quatro owes something to her. That's the
How?
best way. That's the best way to explain it. You just like Elvis, I mean, how many people cite Elvis? It must be every artist in the world. He changed
Yeah.
everybody's viewpoint. And the reason why I even say my name in the same breath is because I was the first girl to do it. So that had
Yeah.
an effect. That had an effect
Yeah.
on all the women in the world going, oh my God. And it was like a shock therapy. What's this girl doing? She's got a bass guitar, a leather suit. What's gone wrong in the world?
I mean, it's incredible, and you are such an important part of women in rock. So how does it feel that you are kind of a massive part and have influenced so many women to go out there and make rock music?
Well, to be honest, and I always am very honest about this, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know it was different, not with my musical upbringing. When I said to my dad, "We're starting a band," he said, "Great. I want to play bass guitar. Do you have it?" He said, "Sure." And he went and gave me a 1957 Fender Precision. So for me, I didn't have the feeling that I was doing anything unusual, which is why it worked. That's why it worked. It wasn't manufactured. And it wasn't until, and I've told this story so many times, but it's true. It wasn't until I watched my documentary in 2019 at the Regent Theatre at the premiere in England, and I snuck in, stood on the side because you were supposed to wait till the Q&A at the end, and I watched all these girls come on the screen. I mean, your Debbie Harry, your Joan Jett, your Chrissy Hine, your Donita Sparks, your Kathy Valentine, your Tina Weymouth, your Katie Tunstall, your Joan Jett, and they all said different times of the film, but they all said basically the same thing. If I paraphrase, they said, "We would not do what we have done if it had not been for Suzi Quatro doing it first." And that was as the credits started to roll, and I was due to go backstage for my Q&A on stage with the audience. I was crying because
Yeah.
yeah, it touched me, and that was the first time, say it honestly, that was the first time I realized what I had done. But now that I've realized it, I'll take it, thank you, and I'll take it to my grave, and I'm proud of it. But I didn't know that that's what I was doing.
I mean, that's an absolutely incredible list of names that you've just reeled off there that
I
have
know.
said that they wouldn't have done what they'd have done if it wasn't for you, like Debbie Harry, Chrissy Hine. It's incredible, and it's so like you didn't really realize like how big that was, and until you watched that documentary back in 2019.
Then I got it.
Yeah,
And
I bet.
and just I have a little punchline to that story because it's funny, and then we move on. I called she's a good friend of mine, Cherie Curry, who was the lead singer from the Runaways, and I called her in California the next day, and I told her that story, and I said, "Oh, Cherie, I just realized something." She said, "What?" I said that by me doing what I did, I gave women permission all over the world to be different. And there was this long pause. And then she went, "And you just got that?"
So she obviously knew a long time before you then.
Yeah, yes, obviously everybody did. I just didn't get it, whatever, it doesn't matter. And I didn't, like I said, I didn't know that what I was doing was different. They say, "Oh, you kicked down the wall." I didn't even know there was a wall. I just had a different mindset, which worked in my favor.
It's it's incredible. It really is, and obviously your success it was massive. And before we talk a little bit about that, I just wanted to ask you about. I know you moved over to the UK in '71. So what was it that kind of as like being born in America? What was it about the UK that kind of attracted you then, Susie? And why was it you thought, right, this is probably the right place to be for a music career?
Well, there were two factors in that. I had a record company, Electra Records, came and saw the band, and the guy, Jack Holstrom was his name, he ran the company. He offered me a solo contract. Okay. In the same week, and this does not happen, doesn't happen. In the same week, Mickey Most came over from England, saw the band, and offered me a solo contract. Jack Holtzman said, "I will take you to the New York and put a male band around you and make you into the next Janis Joplin." And Mickey Most said, "I'll take you to England. I'll put a male band around you and make you into the first Suzi Quatro." So I figured, Mickey, I'm not Janis Joplin. I don't pretend to be. She's wonderful, but I'm not like her at all. I'm more based in rock and roll. She was more blues. I went with Mickey. He was the right guy. Also, I was a fan, I have to say. I was a huge Donovan fan when I was in my teens, and I always used to read the back of the albums, for all the like we all did. Well, you're too old, you're too young. You read the back of the album, you take all the information in, and because I loved him so much, it always said a Mickey Most production, and then it impressed me because it said a Mickey Most production produced by Mickey Mouse. So he said his name two times, but he was a Gemini. So that's why. Anyway, so I had him in my mind as somebody whose production I loved. And the funny part is, he didn't end up producing me. He couldn't get me on record. And he was the first person to say that. He couldn't get me. Mike Chapman had to do that. Mickey didn't get the rough edge of me. He made me too polished. And Mike Chapman let the rough edge shine.
So that was kind of so it all kind of happened like that then, and Mike Chapman ended up taking over almost.
Well, it was oh God, I backtrack now because you're doing a whole story. I was going a little bit stir crazy, and it was 1972-ish. Nothing was happening. I didn't have success. All I was doing was writing and going into the studio, and I was getting really, don't remember, I've been in band since 14. So I had a year without a band. That was real strange for me. And I
Yeah.
begged Mickey to let me form a band, and he said, okay. So I put Ad and Melody Maker and got a band. We did, as soon as the band was formed, Mickey got us on the Slade tour, the first
Yes. Yeah.
international slave tour. That was, what year was that? 1972, the end of 72, starting in November. So we did that tour. I was the opening act. I had like 20 minutes only because they added me as a favor to Mickey. And then it was Thin Lizzy, then Slade. And by the end of that tour, obviously, the band was together. You don't do all those gigs and not get it together. We had a sound. We were doing all my own songs, with a couple of covers. And at that point, I didn't know it actually at the time. It was Mickey's wife who recently passed a couple years ago. She told me years later that she had said to Mickey, "Why don't you get Mike Chapman to produce Susie?" And he got quite annoyed.
Really?
Yes, he said, "What's the matter? You think I can't do it?" She said, "Well, it's been a while." And then she went to bed. So she left him with the slots. The next thing you know, he's got Mike Chapman and Nicky Chin in the office, and he's talking to Mike about writing me a single and producing me. So he obviously took it on board. And his wife was very influential to him, more than what people know. So anyway, that's how that started. Mike came and saw a gig because we were doing all original songs, so as to give him the flavor of what the band was. Very
Yeah.
boogie based. We're very boogie. That was me anyway. And then he saw a gig and he went home and he wrote Can the Can. Brought it in a very rough demo, very rough demo. And we went down in the rehearsal room at Rack, and all the musicians, I have to say it as it was, they all put their 2 cents in. The drummer said, "What about this?" Fantastic. It was a signature drum beat. I started my boogie bass. Len, my ex, he put in that wonderful guitar riff in the middle. And the keys were done by Alistair, who was fabulous, fabulous pianist. And we made that record. And it worked. Went to number one.
Isn't it amazing how like these things do come together in life? Like imagine if Mike Chapman had never been at that Slade gig when you were supporting, then potentially Can the Can wouldn't have been born essentially.
Everything has a path.
Yeah.
I always say you're born with the game plan, whether you
Yeah.
follow whether you follow it or not is your decision. But sometimes even when you don't follow it, that's also part of the plan. And that's a real mind killer.
I
Even
th
even going wrong is
yeah.
part of the plan. I like that idea.
Yeah.
It's all in my book, by the way, when we get to it. That's all the kind of
Yeah.
stuff that's in my book,
You're
all the psychology.
meant to kind of follow a certain path, and I think they call it the butterfly effect.
Yes. Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's the
Yeah, then
official.
you get into that whole argument, is everything destined because you do have free choice and blah, blah, blah. But in a way, it is.
Yeah.
You have
Uh,
a beginning, you have an end. You can't get away from that. Begin and you end. And what goes on in between, well, you paint the picture.
this because they do say everything happens for a reason in
They
life,
do. They do.
and that's
And I have said that's been one of my favorite sayings my entire life, and one I've stuck to since I've known it. And it is true. Everything does happen for a reason. You might not know the reason right away, but eventually that reason will become apparent.
it will come. Yeah, I do like that way of looking at things. I think there's a real I think it's correct. I do, and I think it's incredible to look at it that way.
Yes,
Really,
it is. It is.
Can the Can, of course, number one in the UK in June 1973. How did that feel as an artist achieving your first number one, here in the UK, top of the charts, top of the pops. And yeah, what was it like achieving that number one?
Well, it was surreal. It was surreal, but at the same time, not unexpected because that's what I was aiming for. You know,
Yeah,
when I left Detroit, I kind of said to myself, I don't go back to Detroit till I have a hit. And I didn't. I
yeah.
didn't go back. I didn't go back to 74 and had a year of hits. It was quite surreal because Mickey called me at 8 o'clock in the morning when they get the report from the people what's in the charts. They get the report real early, and he called me, and the lady who owned the flat where I lived in, she called me downstairs, and I said, God, Mickey, this is early. He said, yeah, I know, but I have to talk to you. He said, you have a gig tonight? I said, yes. He said, it's in Bristol. I said, yes. He said, well, we have to hire a plane for you. And I didn't like to fly. And I mean, he said, no, no, no. Why? And he kind of dragged it out. He said, well, because you're going to be doing Top of the Pops because you're number one. Well, I screamed. I woke up the entire house.
It-
And then of course, and everything that follows, it's a crazy, surreal moment. I remember 12 bottles of champagne arrived from the record company. The reporters
it-
were not, calling
yeah.
everybody wants to do an interview with me. But the funniest part was going after Top of the Pop showed me as number one. That was on at what time? 7 or 8 or something in the evening. We watched it, obviously, and then we went to the local pub for a drink to, just go out like we normally did, right around the corner. And I got mobbed. I
By
walked into, I know, weird. I walked into the pub and they
yeah.
went, there she is. I went, who? There was, yeah, so it was incredible. So you realize, um, I think most artists would say the same, when you get a hit, you do realize your life is never going to be the same again.
It changes.
Yeah, and then you have to make a decision, which I will say it now because it's on my mind. You can either be, and you do make a conscious decision, you could be the kind of artist who puts on a baseball cap and dark glasses and hides when they go out in public, okay? Or you can go out as you and accept everybody looking and saying, are you, are you? You can go one of two ways. And I took the second way because I did not want to hide my whole life.
Yeah.
And it's not without its problems. You do get problems, especially when you're first in the charts and it's scream scene time, then that's difficult. And sometimes in Japan, you can't leave the hotel because the kids outside. Sure, all that happens. But basically, I have allowed myself to live feet on the ground, normal life. And that is something I'm very, very glad that I did. I've got my feet firmly on the ground. Thank goodness. Because this business can rip you to shreds if you let it.
And we have seen stories like that over the years as well with people that
Sure.
have struggled with the fame and everything. But no, I think that's good that you've managed to kind of adapt that lifestyle then and just live as you and as
That's
yourself.
me. Correct. And I do have an ego room at home, which helps, by the way. I collected everything through the years, and it's all in one room, and it's quite good. So I have everything in this ego room. Okay. And there's a sign on the door and it says ego room, mind your head. And you can go in and there's videos, there's scrapbooks, there's DVDs, there's bass guitars, there's a rack full of old stage clothes, um, awards, pictures, everything. You can go in there, and funny enough, it's the quietest room in the house. Again,
Really?
I know, think about that for a minute. So you can go, I know it's crazy. You can go up, it's very peaceful up there. It's like being in the eye of the storm, the eye of the hurricane. Um, so you can go up there and just enjoy and look at something and watch something. And I've said this in my show for years now. When you walk out that room, when you're done, you close the door.
Has to be shut.
It has to be shut. And that's the
Yes.
important part. You walk into the ego room, enjoy, and walk out. And that's kind of how I live my life. I don't take Suzi Quatro off the stage, and you shouldn't. That's the performer part of me. That stays on the stage.
And then everything else is just a bit more quiet then.
My husband always laughs. He says the wild one becomes the mild one.
That's a good quote.
That is a good quote. You can
Everything's
use it. Yeah, it's a
left
good
on
quote. I didn't
stage.
say it. He said it.
What's the proudest item in the ego room then?
Oh gosh, do I have a proudest item? I don't know. Oh, you know what I like a lot? that you walk in and the first thing that catches your eye is on the little table in front of the couch. There's the big red book, and it says, "This is your life." That kind of
Ah,
puts,
it's,
that kind of says everything. That's what you see first, and that's what's in that room. This is your
it's
life.
a,
Yeah,
also it kind yeah puts the whole sums the
in
whole room up
perspective.
and
Yeah.
puts it into perspective. Yeah, that's good thinking. The first thing that catches somebody's eye. No, I like it. We'll talk about your book in a moment. Of course, that's out
Okay.
right now. But just beforehand, following on from Can the Can being number one in June 1973, you had Devilgate Drive number one again in February 1974, and in various other countries too. So, how was it following up from Can the Can with Devilgate Drive as number one too,
Yeah,
and then
fantastic. Yeah,
was
but
it
I mean, it was
different
fantastic.
experience second time around?
Yeah, yeah. Same kind of thing. The five I remember we had. I'm trying to remember the order now. See how good I am. Can the Can. I believe it was in 48. Crash was the second hit, and then I think it was Too Big. And then I think it was Devilgate Drive. Yes, and I remember Mike was in the office, and Mickey said to Mike, I remember this like it was yesterday. He said, "Mike, Susie needs another number one now," and he wrote Devilgate Drive.
Just
Crazy.
that quickly.
When Mickey said, he said the magic word, Susie needs another number one now. And it was. And he wrote it. It's crazy. Very talented boy. And then, of course, loads and loads and loads followed. Then we go through them all. You don't want to mention them all, but I was very blessed. We had a good working relationship for many
Yeah.
years. Yeah.
It's, I mean, a fantastic song as well, and just yeah, but that's incredible. Mike, Susie needs a number one,
Yeah.
and it's click of the fingers, and it's there.
Well, it doesn't stop there. I mean, as long as we're doing that, I'll do one more story on that because you're doing a big program. Um, Stumbling in. Everybody wants to know how that happened.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
This is another example of what I say is Mike's genius. Okay. We were we were recording our If You Knew Susie album in Cologne at the EMI studios. Okay. And there was a big award ceremony, big gig there. So we're all there. Lots of famous people, da 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 da, getting awards, da da da. And then we went to a private party at a club. All the famous people, private party, a little band on stage. Okay. So I was in the mood to sing for fun. And I won't name names, but I asked at least three people, big stars, to come up and jam with me. One of them actually said, "I'm not working tonight." I went, "But that's the point. Go up and have some fun." Anyway, Chris was standing next to me.
Ah,
I didn't ask him. I grabbed him, dragged him up on the stage. I literally said, "Come here." We went up and we started to sing. Okay. So we were jamming with the band, just singing some rock and roll, having fun. Mike looked up on the stage and he loved what he saw. He loved what he heard. And he came up with the idea to do a duet. So I'm near the end of the story now. The next day, he comes in the studio. We're ready to start the session. And he said to the engineer, "Put on the mic, put on his guitar. Susie, get on the piano." I said, "Okay." And he said, "After every line I sing, I want you to play da 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 da." I said, "All right." So he went, "Our love is alive, da 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 da." And so we begin da 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 da. Just that little bit of the chorus. And he said, "Thank you, give me the tape." And then he turned to the band room and he said, "I'm going to go home and write the verses now when I'm done with today's." So he got that idea for that particular song, watching us jam. And when we recorded it, he said, "I want to recreate what I felt and saw that night, how the idea was
yeah,
born." So he said, "I don't want you guys doing your vocals separately." He put us facing each other, exactly face to face. This is why you'd get that intimate feeling on the recording of that, because we
when
actually sang it
listening.
to each other. Yeah, it was very real. Yeah.
Very different to kind of recording from
Yes.
like various different places and when you're not together. But no, that's incredible. So it was all born from just having a bit of fun on stage that night then.
Well, I go up anywhere. I've gone out at pubs. I have. If I've been at pubs, I've done it my whole life. I feel like playing, I'll get
Yeah.
up and play.
Yeah.
Move over. Move over.
A
Because you know
bit of
what? It's where you started, So you're not getting paid. So what? So you're having fun doing what you love doing. And there's nothing more fun than jamming with a band you've never played with before. It challenges you.
It's good that you still kind of enjoy that then, because I'm sure there's many artists out there that probably wouldn't fancy that now.
There's many artists that
Yeah.
couldn't do it now because they didn't have the advantage of being a musician in the 60s. And I've had many talks with 60s musicians. We started off in the era where you had to do sometimes 5 sets a night. This is not unusual. You know, I mean, my husband's sitting here. He knows he used to go see the Beatles. They played all night long in Hamburg. He used to go see them
Yeah.
when they were just a band. So this is your learning ground. So the fact that you played so long each night, you learn your craft, which means you can go on stage with any band and you can jam. And a lot of the artists of today don't have that because these kind of gigs don't exist anymore, where you play 5 sets a night. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's not the same now, is it?
No,
It's
not the same. No.
unless it's like Bruce Springsteen going on for 3 hours, then
Well, I go for two
yeah.
with
Yeah.
a short interval, and I love doing that. Yeah, and he was the same. It's the same era. Yeah.
Yeah.
He would say 3 hours. I'd say 2 hours.
Easy work, easy
Yeah,
work.
easy work. Yeah.
We'll talk about your book now, Susie. It's out now. Your new novel, Grave Undertakings. You've got it right there. Nice cover, and yeah, you've been collecting epitaphs for over 35 years. So, where has this book come from then? And I wanted to ask about like kind of going into writing as well, writing novels and kind of the transition from doing music and then doing a bit of novel writing. Where did that kind of come from, and when did you first start like writing novels?
Well, I've always been writing. I mean, my mother brought over one time that she visited me that she had kept for many, many years, a poem in big paper that I'd written when I was 8. It's very strange. And it was called that I wrote this, and it was called The Depression of a Rock and Roll Star.
8 year old.
Yeah, the mind boggles. Where did I get that from? I have no idea. Anyway, I've always drawn, I've always written, I've always done poetry. I did my first book in, I believe it was 2006, my autobiography, Unzipped. The poetry, I have, when I put my first poetry book out, I had been collecting poems my whole life, which I added to the book. And then I wrote obviously new ones. So I've got my first novel, The Hurricane, which is about the rock and roll profession. 2 poetry books, Through My Eyes and Through My Heart. Then I had Through My Thoughts, which was inspired by the COVID lockdown. Then I had
Yeah,
Through My Words, which is my lyric book. Then I had my second novel, which is my 7th published book, Grave Undertakings. And I've just delivered my 3rd poetry book to the publishers for summer release. But this one, you asked the question, Graveyard Dweller. In fact, we had a graveyard right near our home where I was growing up in Grosse Pointe. I'm one of those people that, and I think everybody does. When you find a graveyard, you go in and you look at the tombstones, and it's fascinating, isn't it?
like
Fascinating.
see what it reads, and
Yeah,
yeah,
what it reads and what year, and it always dawns on me which ones are neglected and which ones are well tended, and it makes me my brain goes haywire. You know, oh, I bet you they were neglected in life. I do all that. So then I came up with the title about 35, maybe even 40 years ago, Grave Undertakings, for this obsession that I have with graves. And I started to collect from all my famous friends um, tombstones. I call them up and say, hi, what would you like on your tombstone? And most of them, 99% said fine, that they gave me their quotes. A lot of them aren't with us anymore, but a lot of them are. There were a few that declined. A couple of them
yeah,
weren't very well, and they said, no, I think this is, tempting fate. Fair enough. But anyway, all these quotes, I think nearly 200. And then about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, I decided to assemble the book. It was just going to be Grave Undertakings with these collection of tombstones. And I thought maybe even doing a couple of cartoons and the funny ones and blah, blah. And as I was collecting them, I realized without a shadow of a doubt that this was a perfect excuse to write a novel.
yeah,
Yeah, it just
yeah.
screamed.
It
So I thought,
just
what? Yeah, exactly. So what can I do? And I thought, okay, we're talking about life and death and everything in between, right? So let's have 6 psychology students meet in a tutorial at a college with an Austrian professor, and then you start 10 classes, and so you had to map it out, and then you give each one a character, a backstory, their quirks, the good parts, the bad parts, and then you start creating the story. And once I had the names of the characters and their basic personalities down, the story just wrote itself and it flowed, as all artistic things do. You go, you get lost in the zone of the creation and you just start going. And I was flowing. Then it took a while to work out the ending because I had to get that just right. I went through two or
Yeah.
three, yeah, I went through 2 or 3 different scenarios till I settled on the exact correct one. And people are really, really relating to this book. My publicist, Mike, said that the response to this particular book, my seventh, has been unprecedented. So it must be touching people because it makes you, what somebody said to me yesterday was it's made her stop and consider her self, her triggers, her bad parts, her good parts, her mortality. Would she
Yeah.
be happy? Would she be happy when her time came? Because at the end of the day, once you've done everything you're going to do in life, we're all the same. We're born, we live our life with the goods and the bads and the tragedies and the happiness and everything else. And then at the end, you're 6 foot under with a tombstone with a few words on it. That's perspective for you. That's from Spinal Tap.
One of the one of the guaranteed things in life.
Oh, that's what my mother
Yeah.
always said. There's only two
Yeah.
things you're sure of. You're gonna be born, you're gonna be die. And that's it. Done.
Yeah. Two things that are certain in life.
So two certainties. But what you do in between is what this story is. That's what the story is. So you will relate. You'll find that everybody's relating to one or two of the characters very much, and it takes you on twists and turns as life does. You don't expect a lot of what happens. You certainly don't expect the ending. And then for me, the tombstones at the end now have a reason for being there.
So a lot of these epitaphs have been put into the book then.
No, no, I didn't
Also,
put it. I listed them all at the back of the book. All the different tombstones. Let me just get to the back real quick.
on it's kind of like
The class
the
dismissed, a
yeah.
collection of epitaphs. Mine is brilliant. Gemini, I get too. One side says, now I get it. The other side says, too many dreams, too little time. I'll get, the actor Alfred Marks. He has a good one. He died quite a
Oh
few years ago.
yes.
Yeah, he's a well-known actor. The reason this stone's unnamed and undated is because I am not here. I've been cremated. There's so many
That's
funny ones here. Oh, I love Andy Scott's. He's a good friend of mine. I'll read his. The
oh, is it
guitarist.
Andy Scott from Sweet?
Love Andy.
Yeah,
We
I've
made it.
spoken
We
to him
made an
before.
album
Yeah,
together.
yeah,
QS and P. Quattro Scott and Powell. Love is like oxygen. Too much, too high. Not enough, and then you die.
yeah. Just putting that in there.
Yeah.
The truth.
And there's some
Yeah.
Cliff Richards. Bless him. He was one of the few who said, "Can I think about it and get back to you?" So obviously he's not one to just be off the cuff.
He
So then he
wanted to
came. Yes.
think.
Yeah. I guess he had in his mind he wanted it to be exactly what he wanted it to be. So, and this is very clear. Jesus and rock and roll work well together in the hands of someone who loves them both.
Jesus and rock and roll together.
Yeah. Brian May is good, and then we're done, and that's all I'll read. Who wants to live forever when love must
Ah,
die? When love must die.
so he's put a reference into one of his songs there as well.
Yes.
Actually,
Yes, with
yeah,
a little
yeah,
twist. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So excellent. So anyway, that's the payoff at the end. You get to read all these interesting quotes, and the story as well.
And like the quotes have kind of inspired the story in the book then.
Yes, they did. They did.
So it's incredible really that you've kind of had this fascination with collecting epitaphs for over 35 years and then it's transpired into a story.
I know it's a crazy way for it to happen, but that's what happened. And like I said, it wasn't until I was putting it together, and then as an artist, you cannot ever silence your artistry. You can't. It screams. It screams at you. And this said, this is a story. I said, okay, okay. And then I had to think about it. It took me about a year and a
Yeah.
half to write. Yeah. I didn't rush it. I let it develop. I let it develop.
I guess it's just another form of art as well, and another form of creative art writing. Even if it's not music, it's still like another creative form of art, like I say.
Well, I am involved. I'm an artiste, first of all. I always say that I'm an artiste. I'm able to do many things in the arts. I don't do what I can't do. I only do what I can, but I'm very good with the written word. And in my poetry books, there's quite a few examples. It's interesting of a poem that became a song. And
Yeah,
they're side by side
yeah.
because sometimes when I'm looking for inspiration and nothing's coming, I'll go to my poems and I go, wait a minute. Then you look at the poem and you take out one or two of the lines, put it in a different meter, and you've got a song. And
It's-
sometimes it's the opposite way. And you write lyrics for a song, and the song just doesn't happen. You have no reason for it. It just doesn't happen. You look at the lyrics again, and then you go, oh, no wonder this isn't happening. This is a poem. So you get it goes both ways.
And you could even go back to Bob Dylan, like we said at the beginning, for a little bit of that too.
Absolutely. I feel the same.
Yeah, it's art's an incredible thing. It really is, and of course, the book is out now and it's available to buy. And like you say, it's had a great response, which is amazing.
Yes.
But are you planning to release another one sometime soon? Did you say there's a summer
I got my third poetry
publication
book.
coming?
It's been delivered. So we're working on the presentation of that right now. Um, did I mention the tour yet? No.
I was
Um,
good. Yeah,
oh,
I
go
was.
ahead.
I was
I'll
going to
let
ask you at the beginning, you gave me a little bit of an exclusive, which is in fact revealed now that you will be doing a 10-day tour of the UK next April, I believe.
April, and I can say,
April.
and one of the gigs is a Palladium. So I think it's the third time we played there now. I played there before, but with this show, it's my 2 hour solo show with an interval, and you get taken on a journey.
A journey through the music. So all the way through your career, then all your different music from over the years.
Yeah, I mean, I've been releasing lately. I've just really had a very creative time. 2019, the No Control album, um, that got great reviews and it charted in some places. The Devil in Me, that was 2021. These are the two projects when I started to work with my son playing guitar and co-writing. Then Uncovered, which was my 6 track EP of my favorite songs from the 60s. And then in 2023, as you know, because you mentioned Face to Face with KT Tunstall. And
Yeah.
that was album of the week on BBC Radio 2 and picked up an album of the year award. That got rave reviews and it did chart. And now I'm working on my next solo album, which we began last week. Got 11 tracks, bass and drums recorded.
So it's in early works at the moment. Then this next album.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. It's kind of it's a full circle back to my roots. So
Also, it's kind so do a lot of the influences kind of play a big part on this new record then?
yeah, you'll hear
Yeah.
the original Suzi Quatro on this.
I'm excited to hear it, and I know you might not know too much yet if it's very early, but when do you think this might come to light, and when do you think we can
Oh,
hear it?
okay. So I
Hard
don't think it's
question.
I know it is because I don't think it's going to be done till about the end of September. So I would say feasibly early next year.
Fingers crossed it can kind of be
Yeah.
almost within
Depends on
the
how quick they can
months
move it,
of
but yeah, yeah,
within the months of the tour as well. Then
that would be good. Yeah.
where else are you playing on the UK tour then?
Okay. Are you going to come to a gig?
Which cities are you in?
I
I'm
don't, you got to look
based.
at the list. You got to look at the list and you decide, and I'll give you a special price.
I'll definitely be down. It would be an honor
Okay.
to see you
Cheesy hero.
live. But
Okay, that'll be good.
no, I look forward to it. But it's Susie, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast.
My
So
pleasure.
thank you very much for joining
Thank
me
you very
again. And what we do to complete every episode is we just fire a few random questions at the
Okay,
guests.
I've done these before.
And
Fire
yeah,
away.
I'm gonna
Yep.
give you three music ones then.
Okay.
So if you could host a dinner party, Suzi Quatro was hosting a dinner party with three guests. Let's say not just music. We can go anything. There can be musicians in there. But if you were inviting three guests, who would you invite?
Okay. Believe it or not, Jesus.
Yeah,
I've always wanted to meet him. And really, what a charisma. You think you are charisma, you gotta be kidding me. Okay, him, I would invite Elvis.
Elvis. I thought Elvis might be in there.
Oh yeah, and very possibly Bob Dylan.
Yes, I think that would be a very
Nice dinner
interesting
party. Oh yeah,
Jesus,
you got
Elvis, and Bob Dylan.
oh boy. Woo.
No, I like that, and I think it would make an interesting party.
Oh
And,
yes.
following on from that, if you could have written and recorded one song that's not your own, which song would you pick?
Gosh, that is hard. Okay, well, I think just flew into my mind random. Vincent,
Nearly,
the lyrics on that are
yeah.
absolutely beautiful. Yeah,
So
I don't know
it's
why that popped into my head, but it did when you asked that question. So
the lyrics kind of capture you on that one, then,
they do. Yeah.
yeah. And finally, obviously you've been in the UK for a lot of years now. Where's your favorite place to play in the UK?
Oh
Where
gosh.
do you have the best memories?
In the UK, God. Well, the Royal Albert Hall, that was a very special gig to do. That was the first one after lockdown. So I always remember that because my last gig had been in September, and the next gig was the next year in April at the Royal Albert Hall with nothing in between. So I had to be prepared. And I love the Palladium. I love playing the
Yeah.
Palladium. Um, oh, there's so many good gigs. I don't want to leave anything out. I love that's the UK part. I can't think of any
The
more at the moment. We played the Barbican Center last year in New York. That was
Oh,
fantastic.
that's the
The
Barbican's a
Liverpool,
lovely
the
venue.
Liverpool
Yeah,
Philharmonic,
yeah.
fantastic gig. Oh, and even the girls who are from Liverpool, my two BVs, they said that Liverpool could be notoriously difficult. It wasn't.
Yeah, people.
And I'm not saying I skated it, but I'm saying it was an electric gig. It was a
Yeah. No, Liverpool's just got that music heritage as
yes,
well, hasn't
sure.
it? As well with
Are
like
you
the
kidding?
Beatles and
Everybody came from
the
Liverpool.
Merseybeat
Yeah,
scene. Yeah,
sure,
it's
sure.
it's it's one of the cities you think of when you think of music. Have you ever been? I mean, I'm based up in the northeast. Many good memories of playing up here. I'm the closest place to me is actually Middlesbrough, and I remember I was speaking to somebody when I told them I was going to be interviewing you, and they said they recall seeing you at the Rock Garden.
I don't remember. I can't remember all the gigs, but I mean, after all these years in the business, I think there's very few places I haven't been.
Yeah, it's it's Middlesbrough's because there's not much musically there now, but I think that was once a venue. But
Right.
yeah, so yeah, it's hopefully you can get back up here soon.
Yep, that would be good.
Yeah. But no, Susie, it's been an absolute pleasure again.
Okay.
Pleasure to chat with you. So thank
Nice
you
to
so
chat with
much
you
for
too.
joining me on the podcast.
Okay. Thank you.